Welcome, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here with you again. As usual, I wish that we could be in person. I wish that the pandemic isn't the way it is right now, and that we could physically be in the same room. But that's just not possible at the moment. And welcome to this Leadership that the district executive team is presenting for you today. We as I mentioned earlier, and I think maybe we've had a few people log in since I mentioned it. If you can, if you're able to, we'd love to see your face. So please unmute your video or start your video so that we can see you. We've had a couple of people that can't get the video to work, and that's okay. And at least one person that doesn't like the way she looks today. So we'll give her a pass. But if you're able to, please show us your face. We do anticipate that this will be an interactive discussion as we go through the finances of the college, among other things, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So please join us. So when the district executive team, when we were discussing convocation and orientation week and what information that we might be able to provide that would be of value and use to you, we discussed the possibility of including a session much like this about information that has been asked for in the past. We discussed a recent article from September of 2020 in the Chronicle of Higher Ed, written by a woman named Allison Valencourt. Allison retired about a year ago from the University of Arizona as its vice president for business affairs and human resources. The article was entitled, "What if everyone on campus understood the money?" And it's actually a fairly short article, about six pages, printed pages if you printed it out. That sounds like a long article, but it's actually really large type and spaced out. It's actually a pretty quick read. If you have access to it, go back and read it. It's a pretty good read. Again, it's the September 11th, 2020 issue of the Chronicle. And the title again is "What if Everyone on Campus Understood the Money?" Anyway, it got us thinking about how we might share more broadly information about things that affect college-wide decisions and what might be important for everyone to hear and to know. As an institution, and as you know, we are following the initiatives of the strategic plan. And we talked about them this morning in convocation. The four initiatives are: foster a culture of student engagement, enhance program offerings, develop a strategic enrollment plan, and strengthen fiscal responsibility. Those are the four initiatives. We have worked and we continue to work to strengthen the college in all areas that matter, all areas that we as an institution and as a community and as a governing board have decided these are what we need to focus on right now. Now, from my perspective, and really almost the moment that I stepped into this office, almost 3 years ago now, I determined, or I felt like the three pillars, and I called them pillars of EAC, were student success, community engagement, and fiscal responsibility. And these three things undergird. Oh, thank you. Heston just shared the link to the article on the in the Chronicle of Higher Ed. Thank you for sharing that. Anyway, I felt that these three pillars undergird our strategic plan. And if we can focus on those initiatives and the pillars that are underneath them, that we will strengthen the college for decades to come. Continuing this work with the strategic plan that we are continuing on will give all of us a better sense of how we're doing, not just financially, but also in terms of student engagement and student experience, enrollment, community involvement, and in so many other areas. But we cannot accomplish this as a small administrative team alone. It requires a much broader group of all of us, really everyone on campus, everyone on all of our campuses. So working together, we can be the institution that we say that we aspire to be. So in order to effectively solicit your help on committees and on task forces, and as we work to restructure some processes that maybe we feel like need to be improved, like the budget, and how we can use it to strategically grow and to give everyone a good background on the college that we feel will help you, all of you, in your position. We are following the lead of Miss Valencourt, and we've developed a, let's call it a pop quiz that we're going to use today to start this discussion about EAC's finances, about our strengths, about our weaknesses, our opportunities, our aspirations, and things that we need to work on. Some of you may find this information very interesting. Now, some of you, maybe not so much. Maybe it's not your cup of tea, but you've got an interest in what we're going to talk about. And that's okay. But I believe that if everyone has at least a general understanding of how the college operates on a macro level, then we will all be better positioned to make decisions, each of us in our own areas, that are strategic and will help push the institution forward. So I know that we are on Zoom and we don't have respondents to check to ensure that you're not looking at notes, but we're asking everyone to not use notes. Don't Google this, don't look on our website as we go through these questions, as we go through this quiz. It's intended to be a discussion, but don't look up this information before you answer. This is going to be an honor system. The idea really is to see how much you already know, and to provide an opportunity to discuss, and to discuss the whys and the whats and hows even. So as we go through this, please use the chat feature in Zoom. When we get to a question and you want to answer it, or if you have an idea for an answer, please answer it in the chat, and we can discuss what the answers are. We can discuss what people are suggesting, and then I will provide the quote unquote real answer. Don't be shy. We want to hear what you have to say. If you don't know the answer, make your best educated guess. We'd like to know what you're thinking. Any questions before we start? Okay. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Can everyone see that?
Yep, it looks great.
Okay, good. All right, so very first question right out of the gate, and these questions largely come from that article in the Chronicle from Alison Valencourt, and we've modified them just slightly to fit EAC and our particular circumstance. So first question is, does anyone know what EAC's annual revenue was in the last fiscal year, excluding grants? Grants throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into the numbers for lots of reasons. Thoughts? I don't know if I can see the chat. There we go. Okay, all right, interesting answers here. Now, these are annual revenues, so all the money that the college receives to operate, excluding the money that we receive for grants. So
this includes the state?
All revenues.
All revenue.
Everything that we receive, minus grants.
Wow, we are all over the board.
All over the board. It started off really small, really low numbers.
But we are huge now.
Yeah, now we're going crazy. Candy's got 15 million. Thank you for including the dollar sign. You really took some time there. Jeff Henley cheated and said what Heston says.
But look at that, Pam versus Paul versus Laurie.
Yeah.
So clearly we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Sarah, Sarah, you can't change your answer to 15 million just because I called out Candy. Gary, you're copying Jeff Henley. Any other guesses? Remember, this is all revenues that the college receives minus grants.
11 billion.
Oh my word. Twice what Tom makes.
0 times 2 is 0.
Danny says 9 million. Any other guesses? Some of you are pretty close. Okay. Almost 35 million. Now we kind of have to qualify this a little bit, and I'm going to ask Heston to jump in here a little bit. We've excluded grants. Tell us why, Heston, we're excluding grants in the revenue figure.
Sure. Your grants, typically all the grants we get, we have to spend all the money we get. So it just creates some anomalies because what comes in has to, by their very nature, go right back out. So from an internal perspective, of course, not from an audit point of view, if we're going to make decisions and things, a lot of times it's better to exclude those grants because they're conditional and we can't really do anything about them. Once we decide to get them, they have to be used based on the requirements of the grant. So that would be the biggest reason.
Yeah, right. I mean, the funds are restricted. They're very restricted for a very specific purpose. So we can't operate the institution on those monies. And so that's why we decided we had them and then we took them out. And I think it's cleaner if we, with respect to this discussion, to not include the grants. Okay.
Another just quick, another like example, a great example would be even the Pell Grants, which so much of the Pell Grants are counted to us as grants, but obviously, except for what the students use to pay tuition or dorms or whatever, they get the excess amounts of those grants too. And so it also makes our expenses look a lot higher because we're expending those by sending them to students. Anyways, just another little fun part to think about.
A little complication there.
Hmm.
Okay, so what percentage of our annual revenue was tuition? Tuition is one source of revenue for the college. So what percentage of the almost 35 million was tuition?
Mhm.
18%, 10%, 11, 75. Jeff says 75. Eric says 7. Pam says 12%. 23. 2. Alden says 2. Again, all over the board. Really not a clear winner here.
25.
5%, 10%. Shannon says 10. Shalay says 20. The right answer is actually in that list there.
Oh. This one,
Gabe says 25.
50%.
Oh, David, you've got 22.8. Well, that's a very specific amount.
75%.
50%. We should also probably note that I know we have some employees from Gila County here. This does not include Gila County. We've excluded them as well for a kind of a similar reason. It's a different financial arrangement with the county. Nate asks, does this separate FAFSA tuition from cash? Heston?
That does not include.
Okay, so wound, no wound.
Amy, are you talking about wounds?
Yes.
It is painful talking about cash. It's excluding.
Bleeding me dry.
It's excluding financial aid tuition from students.
Okay, so the answer is 10%. So 10% of our annual
Who said
revenue
that?
is tuition. You know, some institutions, that's a much higher figure. And some institutions are very tuition dependent. It's neither a good nor bad thing. It's just, it is what it is. And we'll talk about that in a little bit, about why. Okay, so of our annual revenues, what are EAC's top 3 sources, excluding grants? Does anyone know?
Grants. Contributions?
Okay, so we've got property taxes, state funds, property taxes, taxes, equalization, state aid and property tax, footsie, state equalization, donations, taxes. It's going to be a good discussion. Okay, so Gary says equalization, property taxes, and corn dog sales. Okay, no, okay, good.
Property tax, donations, and what?
Corn dog sales. Andrea Rennan says partnership agreements, state equalization, other state aid. Tom, I'm not sure if you should participate in this, especially after that 11 billion.
I just cut and paste what Lori Pennington had, so.
Okay, Schley says state funds, property taxes, state equalization, property taxes, state taxes, dark web auctions. You know, we hadn't considered that. It's a great idea, Nate, dark web auctions. State equalization, intuition, and prisons. Okay, interesting. All right, you ready? Top source of revenue, we've combined these. It's equalization and state aid. I'm going to go through these and then we'll kind of explain them a little bit. At 61%, equalization and state aid together, 61% of all of our revenues. Local property taxes is 19%, and tuition is again 10% of our revenues. Equalization, I'm not quite sure how best to explain this, and maybe I can get Heston here to help me a little bit. But in Arizona, the way the community college system was set up in statute is that community colleges really should be primarily funded by local property taxes. And Eastern Arizona College was grandfathered into the state system when the law was passed that enabled community colleges to exist. However, we didn't have the property tax base to support the college. And so eventually, the state came in and created a fund called equalization that basically equalizes what Graham County can't generate in local property taxes. And the idea behind equalization is to generate for the district the property the amount of money that we can't raise locally. So in some respects, the definition of equalization is property taxes, but in another way of looking at it, it is another form of state aid. So we have equalization and state aid together. The other forms of state aid would be specific funding that we receive from the state, which is for workforce development programs and for STEM programs. Heston, is there another bucket there of state aid?
Yeah, the appropriation. So that's the footsie, the amount we receive for footsie,
Right.
which last year calculated out to about $50 per credit.
So, so as you can see, and local property taxes here in Graham County account for only about 19% of our total revenues, which is it's an interesting number because it's so small. It's a relatively small amount of our revenues that we can generate with local property taxes. Interesting, I say, because our local tax rate is high. It's the highest in the state, in fact, among the community colleges. So it's not like Graham County, we can quadruple the property tax rate to cover all of our expenses. That's why equalization is so important to the college to be able to continue to operate. And of that 21 million, that the equalization and state aid together, that equals 21 million, about 17 million of that is equalization alone. So you can see why equalization is so important to us here at EAC. If that were to go away, we would have to make some very difficult decisions about how we would continue to operate.
Todd, can I just interrupt for a moment? I think it's
Yep.
interesting that there are a couple of other community colleges that get this equalization, and maybe folks don't understand that it's not just us.
Right. That's a great point. The equalization is actually a formula that is in state statute, and it's not specific to EAC. It's to any community college that whose assessed evaluation in its local property valuations falls below the average of all of the rural counties or districts in the state. And so it does vary from year to year in terms of how much we receive. And typically Graham County receives it, Cochise College in Cochise County, and Northland Pioneer College in Navajo County also receive equalization funds. And sometimes, depending on the year and depending on the assessed valuation, sometimes Arizona Western College in Yuma County receives equalization funding as well. But EAC receives the largest amount of equalization funding of all the districts.
President, maybe you didn't see I had a question. Is there anything that could put the equalization at risk?
Yes, that's a great question, Troy. In fact, the question just prior to yours is, does equalization keep shrinking? The answer is it can shrink, and but it hasn't for a while. It's a formula-driven statute, and it really depends on. I'm answering Pam's question before yours, Troy, and I'm probably going to paint myself into a corner and need Heston to bail me out. But that formula really depends on not just what our assessed valuation is in Graham County, but comparatively what other assessed valuations are in other counties in any given year. And so it's the difference between our assessed valuation and the average of the others that drives that formula. So that could either shrink our equalization funding or it could make it grow. And what would put it at risk? Well, frankly, it's a political question that could put it at risk. And it's something that we have to fight for, if you will, every year in terms of reminding the legislature why they put equalization in place in the first place. And that was to protect the community colleges, especially those in the rural communities like Graham County. You know, when there's a budget crisis at the state level and they're looking for places to cut money, to cut spending, we could be an easy target. So that's really what could put it at risk on the political level. Yeah, and Laurie mentions that legislators could also appeal the statute, repeal the statute, which is true. Heston, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, just maybe some fun accounting facts. If you historically know some of the history of EAC, you know we went through some really difficult fiscal times in the late, through the 90s, especially in the 80s. Interesting enough, our equalization doubled from 2001 to 2009. And so we had this just extreme growth in the amount we were getting from equalization. Nothing we did, it was just the values, again, reflective of what everything else in the state was doing. And so we had a lot of extra money coming in than we were used to. It peaked in about 2014. That was the highest amount of equalization we ever received. And since then, it's dropped back down to 09-10 levels as of last year. we're seeing it start to climb back up a little bit. But again, it is interesting how, you know, it is a formula, so it can completely change just depending on the environment, what the markets are doing, and specifically with property and real estate, and then how we compare to those other, to the rest of the state. So it is kind of fascinating just to kind of observe what's happened with it, how it came about, why it exists, and really how much we rely on it. And it's something we really can't control. So,
Yeah, it's really always at the top of our minds when we work with legislators. It is an annual process of reminding legislators, because, you know, the legislature changes. These are 2-year terms, right? So they change, they roll over constantly. And so as we get new legislators and we work with them and develop relationships with them, we bring them on campus. You'll see that happen a lot where we have legislators on campus, showing them around and explaining what we do, and really demonstrating the value of EAC, not just to Graham County and Greenlee and Gila counties, but to the entire state, because we pull students and we affect the entire state because of our history, in part, and because of our future. Okay, next question. Remember what the annual revenues were, right? Just under 35 million, 34.8 or something. What was the total amount spent on faculty and faculty and staff salaries last year?
and that also excludes the grants.
Excluding grant salaries, yes. Total amount, not percentage. Danny says 28, Nathan says 26, 24, 28, 21, 22, 26. We're all close to each other here. Aaron Burke gives $2 at the end of that. 27.2. Nate says 67 million. Spending twice our annual revenues. That's a trick. Gary says over 70% of expenses. It does not include benefits, Timothy. This is just the total amount spent on salaries. Amy says 19 mil. Okay, you ready? Total amount spent on faculty and staff salaries last year was 21 million. Timothy, you came really close. Nice job. Pam said 21. You did a good job. Pam and Timothy were the closest. Okay, so I didn't run that percentage, Heston. What is that? 21 out of 34.8. 21.6.
62%.
Okay, well, let's add something else to it then. What is the total cost of annual benefits? This is in addition to salaries. Any thoughts? Troy says 8, Sarah says 15, Carolyn says it's a lot more. Now this is just benefits, right? So we're gonna add this back to the salaries in a little bit here. 5, 8, Gabe says 10, DeLeo says 10, Kenny says whatever Troy said, Mary says 9. Okay, 9.8, Timothy. 9.5. All right, total, Valerie says, Carolyn says 7.3. Kayla says 9. Okay, total cost of annual benefits, 8.2 million. I don't have a slide with both of these together. Justin, what is that? 21.6 and 8.2.
About 30.
Well, yeah, about 30. I could have done that. I could have done about 30.
29.8.
Okay, so about 30 million of our annual revenues of about 35 million go to salaries and benefits. as you don't have to be a mathematician or a nerdy accountant like Heston to know that that's a high percentage of our annual revenues. And the salaries are there forever, right? It's not a one-time expense. It's something that continues every year. So let's go on to some more expenses. How much was spent last year on debt service and utilities? Debt service and utilities. How much did EAC spend on debt? Pennington says 0. Shannon says 0. 0. You guys know us really well, don't you? Nada. Nada. Isn't that a light chicken gravy? If you know Three Amigos, you'll know that reference. Dave Ramsey would be pleased. 0.000. 0-ish. Troy, good. All right. Yeah, the truth is that we have spent 0 on debt service because we don't have any debt. I believe it's probably true. I think we're the only community college that doesn't have debt. And that's been the case for a long, long time, which is something certainly to be proud of. Okay, so utilities. I'm not going to put the answer up yet because it's one answer, so I don't want to give it away. Paul Anger says 3 million on utilities. Pam says 4 million on utilities. Gabe says 3.5. Pennington says 4 million. Nate says 1.2. Candy says 1. Mary, Andrea both say 6. Phil says 2 million, mainly H2O. Mainly H2O. Come on, Phil. $1 if we're Price is writing this. This would have been fun to do this as a game show, huh? 2.5 mil from Kayla. Is this before or after Grass retired? Come on, Spencer. You and Phil, you're on the same page, aren't you? 3 million for Nate, 900,000 for Maurice, 2.2 for Danny. Okay. Aaron Burke's got a very specific amount, 1.7 plus for Aaron Burke. Pretty good guesses here. Alden says 0.8 million. Some of you are pretty close, right? Kind of in the ballpark. I think Nate probably hit it. Nathan Klein probably hit it closest. Oh, I guess I didn't have them. So utilities, so 1.3 million last year on utilities, and debt service 0. Any questions about that? I don't know how much of that was water. I know that came up in our answers.
I just want to say, as somebody who is new, it's amazing that we have 0 debt service. I mean, it's just not heard of. So cool. It's one of the things that really attracted me to EAC.
Yeah.
How does the 0 debt service appear when it comes to equalization, though? I mean, it seems like it would make it easier to cut.
Because we don't have any debt, is that what you mean? The argument would be from the state?
Yeah, like why give them so much money if they don't have any debt? Everybody else does.
That's a great question. The reality is that we really can't go into debt. We don't have the bonding capacity in the county to do it because we don't have the assessed valuation. We have such a high property tax rate that we don't have anywhere to go to do a bond. It wouldn't pass. Voters wouldn't pass an additional tax rate on top of our property tax. Did I say that right, Heston?
You did, and it's a great question, Ray. But what offsets that is our extremely high tax rate. So they see we have no debt, but the flip side is they see how high our property taxes are.
Right.
To kind of realize that, well, there's a reason. Again, it's fun to brag about, but on the flip side, it's nothing we've really done in and of ourselves. If our rate wasn't so high and we did have bonding capacity, then we probably would go into debt to build our buildings and everything else. So
Right.
it's good. We have no debt. It's nice not to have to deal with that. But the flip side is, a lot of the community colleges, there is no other choice, and it's not necessarily a bad way to go if that's what's offered to you. Kind of like our K-12s here. Thatcher just tried to pass that bond, and it failed, unfortunately. Or I guess I shouldn't politically say unfortunately. I mean, it didn't pass. I shouldn't put my skin in the game there. But in a lot of ways, it's a way to cheaply finance rather than going commercially or privately if you have that bonding capacity.
And we're not paying the interest either. I mean, it's basically what we have to do to build facilities is to save it. We save it up. So sometimes people complain a little bit about our relatively high cash balance, but that's the only thing that we've got. We don't have the capacity to raise a bond. So we have to use those funds. David asked the question, aren't we at the legal maximum of our taxing capacity? And we're close. We're not there. For years and years we were at that legal maximum, and then I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago our board declined to increase the property tax levy. I'm trying to remember, Heston, was it a couple of years in a row?
It was 2 or 3, I think, starting in 15 or 16.
Yeah, and so there were a few years that we didn't, that the board did not increase the levy. So that put us under our capacity. Last year they increased it. They increased the capacity. They increased the levy by 6%, which still didn't put us at our capacity. So we're currently under our legal capacity, but we're close to it. Okay, next question. A little bit different line of questioning here. So what is the published, don't look this up, don't go on the EAC website. What's the published figure for EAC tuition per credit? Some of you will absolutely know this. Some of you may go, wait, what is it? Candy says 75, Phil's 90, 90, 90. Okay, so some of you, Amy says 90, 90, 90, 90. Spencer says 87, 90. Pam says in-state 90. I think we're seeing a trend here. I think everyone, most of you know that $90 per credit is our published tuition rate. 15 plus credits, 15 times 90 is 1350. That's our full-time tuition. 15 credit tuition, over 15 it's flat rate, 1350. Okay, what was the size of EAC's, of the EAC Foundation's endowment at the end of the fiscal year? The size of the EAC, meaning, and this is a dollar figure, what's the size of the EAC Foundation's endowment? Remember, the foundation is a legally separate entity. It is not the college, but we do contract with the foundation. Candy says 800,000. Pam Wood says 38 million. That's a big gap there, big difference. Oh, wow. Amy says 73 million. Tammy says 1. Sarah says 500,000. Million, 1.2, 3, 2. Spencer, you don't ask your dad much. You don't talk to your dad much then, I guess, right? Mary says 2. 12 million, says Nathan. Kenny says 10. Gary says 50. Great guesses here, everyone. I haven't seen the answer yet. Well, now we're getting into some pretty high amounts. Aaron Burke says 32 million. Hey, does anyone know off the top of their head what Harvard's endowment is? I used to know. Heston, do you remember what it is?
It's so high, I'd be afraid to guess.
It's in the billions. It's
Yeah.
in the billions.
About as much as Elon Musk or Bezos has. So.
In their drawer.
Yeah.
Okay, so so the size of EAC's foundation at the end of last year was $8.3 million. David Udall's not on this Zoom. in this.
Yeah, he is. He said, I wish to one of the larger amounts.
Oh, is that the David? All I saw was David.
Oh, maybe it
Okay.
wasn't.
Okay, so EAC Foundation's endowment at the end of the fiscal year. David, why don't you chime in and tell us, and we're going to get a little bit more into this, but tell us what it was, say, 10 years ago, just roughly. And then 20 years ago, what was it?
20 years ago, it was 1 million.
20 years ago, that's when I started work here at EAC. It was $1 million.
And 10 years ago, it's about 3.5, 4. And now it's 8.3.
8.3. Bless you. Whoever that was, bless you.
Yeah, bless you.
Okay, so the next question here related to the endowment is, what is foundation policy, meaning the EAC Foundation, on the percentage of the endowment that can be withdrawn annually to fund institutional needs? Any thoughts? Pam says interest only. Okay, good guess. Amy says less than 10%. Candy says 0. Good guess. Interesting guess. 5%. Nate says 25. Pam says 10. Pam Butterfield says 10. Andrea says 15. 27%. Gary says nothing above the principal. 15% from Paul Anger. Increase on the endowment. So I guess, Danny, you mean maybe interest? Carolyn says 20. Spencer says 8%. Any other thoughts? The answer here is actually not as straightforward maybe as it may seem. There are, and I'm glad David Udall's on the call here because he can explain a little bit. But the answer is that there's part of the endowment that can be used for specific institutional need. In fact, there are two. There's a technology endowment that you may be aware of, and then fairly recently we had a high donation from a donor for a music program. So the technology endowment currently sits at 133,000. And David, if I mess this up, please correct me. 133,000. 5% of that annually can be used. Up to 5% can be used to fund the college's technology needs. And the Max and Claire Curtis Bennett endowment for the music program, 3% of that endowment can be used to fund, can be used toward expenses in the music program. Very specific restrictions. We can't just take the money from the interest on the endowment and just use it to pay salaries. We can't use it to build any buildings that we want. They're restricted to certain areas. David, do you want to explain any of that? Or did I do such a great job that it needs no further explanation?
That was fantastic. You know, the remainder of the 8.3 million, a lot of those are in, they're all restricted specifically for a given scholarship. And
Yeah.
So we have some that are just large enough to generate 500 a semester. We've got some that'll generate 20 or 30,000 a year, but each one of those are very specific on the restrictions of a scholarship.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I failed to mention that the rest of the endowment is intended for scholarships, and so that's how much in scholarships did we give away last year? Did the foundation give away?
Just short of 400,000.
Pretty good amount.
Yeah, that's a lot of
directed
students.
Okay, another foundation question. What percentage of EAC's alumni donated last year? Donated money last year? Any guesses? Um, 3%, 5%, 19%, 2%, 10%. It's coming fast and furious. Aaron Burke says 1.3. Pam Butterfield says 25, 8%. Alden says 3,
Check out Alden Montier. How'd that happen?
10%, 10%. Gabe says 50%. Gary says 10%, 2%, 17. Before I answer this question or show the answer, David, how many alumni do we have out there currently, roughly?
38,000, 39. right around there.
39,000 current EAC alumni. Does anyone want to change their guess after hearing that?
And about 7,000 of those married somebody who also went here. So then that'll knock down the households down to 31,000 or so.
Good point. Okay, 0.42% of EAC alumni donated money last year to the college. All right, let's keep going. What about the percentage of EAC employees? EAC employees, percentage of EAC employees who donate to the foundation, who donated last year. Any guesses? Pam says 7.5%, 12%, 7%, 25%, 1%, 5%, 32%, 30%. Alden says 0.01%. Alden, what is that? 9%, 7.5%, 22, 0.5, 0.8. All right. 6.7% of employees donated to the college. A higher percentage than alumni, but again, we have a lot of alumni out there. Any thoughts on that? Questions?
You would think that we could say, hey, if everybody just give us $10, wow, that'd be really cool.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, $380,000 later, we're good to go. But it's
Yeah,
not
that'd be just in 1 year, right? So you can
that easy.
increase that endowment rapidly that way. Nathan says he's surprised it's so low. Eric asked if we have any donation goals. How do get David? What's the strategy there behind requesting donations from either employees or from alumni? What do you see?
Well, we go about things in two ways. One, we do broadcasted requests for money, and that might be through the electronic means or direct mail or other ways. But a big piece of what we do, because we are limited in how many people we have, is person-to-person relationship funding, which translates to larger gifts like the ones with the Bennetts and others.
Right.
Just to make the most out of our efforts. But we try to do both. And then another part of our fundraising isn't necessarily for annual fundraising, but we're seeking people who would consider us in their estate plans as well.
So it's really kind of a twofold effort, right? This broadcast to all alumni, and then maybe specific individuals that you can build a relationship with.
Yeah, as they become more and more involved, their likelihood of giving and the amount of giving goes up. And so the more we can involve people with us, the more joy they find in helping students. And then we see some of those extraordinary donations from time to time.
What about requests from employees? We've mentioned this in the past, but it's fairly easy for an employee to request a salary deduction to donate to the foundation. Easy in terms of it's an email to KL.
Oh yeah, that's all it is. Just email them and copy us so we know how you'd like to apply it, because it could be done for any of the scholarship funds that we have, or or even could be used to support your own program,
Mhm.
sciences or math or whatever.
So if an employee wanted to donate a dollar amount from their paycheck every pay period or whatever, they could email Kay and say, I'd like $25 taken from my paycheck, and then that go to the music department. They can do that.
Yeah, no problem.
Jerry Lukens asked a question, and this is to you, David, is it true that the more people who donate, even smaller amounts, the easier it is to get donations if we can say a certain percentage of alumni or staff have donated to EAC? In other words, is that a good message to send to potential donors?
If where that's most apparent is in asking for grants from non-governmental sources, any of the foundations that are out there that are grantors, they frequently will ask for participation rates from our board of directors, our employees, and then alumni.
Okay, good. I mean, it certainly shows that we have support from alumni and employees, right?
Yeah, that we all believe in the cause more than just receive a check for it.
It's a good message.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't know if any of you here have ever been to a timeshare presentation where we grab you, and now you're all here, and we're going to just high pressure sales. We're not going to do that. However, we'd certainly love for you to donate to the foundation, whether on a regular basis or even a one-time basis. Fairly easy to do. Just contact Kay Ellett, send her an email, copy David Udall in the foundation, and just let her know how much you'd like deducted from your paycheck to go toward the foundation. Anyway, okay. Next question. We're taking another tack here, a little bit different. What are the main reasons students choose to attend your two competitors? Thoughts? Why would students go somewhere else? EAC is the best school in the state. Why would they go somewhere else? Programs, cost, location, closer to home, location programs, more opportunities off campus, lived in Gila Valley too long. Yeah. Offerings, not when students need them. Some people want to leave the Gila Valley. They want to live in an urban environment. Cost, offerings. Nate says getting away. Location, things to do, programs, sports, job opportunities while attending college. Anything else? Cost, location, programs. Too rural, lack of entertainment. Walmart's a lot of fun. I don't know what you're talking about, Candy. People watching at Walmart. Glamour of the big university. Internet linked washers and dryers. Is that a thing? No malls, yes. Malls are passe. Who goes to the mall anymore, Kenny? More interested in activities in the cities, so the urban areas. Kenny says, COVID. Okay, we have some information from you, and we got this from Ruffalo Noel Levitt's research. And Susan, I'm trying to remember who gathered this. Was this Eric Lehman or was it?
Yes, yeah, Eric and Gina.
Gina. Okay, thank you to Eric and Gina. I don't know if Gina's on the call. I know Eric is here. Okay, so this is not specific to EAC necessarily, but I think we're going to probably see some of these reasons among our own students. Top reasons why high school students choose to attend an institution are, and this come up a lot in our answers here, is programs, cost, and location, 1, 2, and 3. And reasons that students choose not to attend an institution, number 1, cost. 60% of students surveyed say that. Number 2, lost interest after learning more. Ouch, that hurts, right? Well, I looked at the place, and after I looked, I don't want to do that. It doesn't look interesting to me. Or number 3, a tie between they don't have my program and I don't like the location. too far from home, don't like the city or town. So clearly we're not going to get every potential student out there because we can't meet everyone's needs and everyone's desires. What does that say about EAC? What do you think it says about EAC? We can't have every program. We can't offer every program that every college or university has, right? It's not reasonable to expect that. Charmaine asks, what institutions have we identified as our two direct competitors? That's a great question, Charmaine. How about we go to that? Because that's actually the next question. Who are our top competitors? And then maybe we can tie it back to that prior question. Who are—
Just President Haney, that prior question is from Ruffalo No Levitz. So it's not necessarily our students. We're going to get to what our students have said. And not that it's vastly different, but that is the research kind of nationwide.
Yep. That's a good point. Thank you, Susan. Okay. Who are the top competitors? Where do our students, if they don't end up here, where do they go? Thoughts? Aaron says BYU or ASU. Maricopa, Mesa Community College and U of A, ASU, NAU, Maricopa Pima, BYU, online and Valley Community Colleges, U of A, ASU online, BYU, Maricopa, universities, MCC and Scottsdale, School of Hard Knocks, U of A, universities, or industry, they go to work, right? Maybe that's hadn't considered that. Freeport, Bear Down, would have expected that from Mike DeLeo. Grand Canyon University, I hear that name a lot. Okay, well, we've got it split up between our top two community college competitors and our top two university competitors. Maricopa, Maricopa Community Colleges or Pima, right? So the two urban areas. So if a student, think about it in terms of a student from a rural area. Someone mentioned it and maybe a couple of you mentioned it in the chat, that I'm from a small town. I want to experience the big city. I want to experience all the activities and entertainment that Mesa, Phoenix, Tucson affords me, and they go right to a larger city. In terms of the universities, no surprises here, ASU and NAU, right? I mean, those are certainly close and very well known. Sorry, Mike DeLeo, no U of A on that list. So again, tying, well, maybe we ought to keep going because we've got some specific information for EAC. Next question is, what are the top two factors that prompt a first-time student to leave campus after a year? That's a retention issue. We've spent a lot of time and effort recruiting students and giving them information about EAC, and why do they leave? Why do they leave before they're finished with a credential? Troy says poor instructors or curriculum. Steve Orm says it was the food. Pam says to get a job, maybe they're homesick, maybe they're not, the maturity level's not there, finances aren't there, families or finances, families or job, work schedule, poor grades, money. It was because of the food, problem fixed, family emergency maybe, marriage or family changes, maybe they transferred, got married, changed, maybe they're transferring to a university, cost of living, they made no connections, that's interesting, Candy. Maybe they got a job. Okay. Okay, so we have a couple of different bits of information here. The top part of this answer comes from, Susan, remind me where this comes from specifically. Do you remember? You're muted.
There's a report that's generated after a student withdraws. They're able to answer why they left. And so not everybody responds to that, but these were the reasons. Eric, do you want to explain that a little bit better, or Shannon?
Yeah, I can give a little bit of insight. So the top ones, when a student withdraws themselves from a class in their Gila Hike account,
They're prompted with a short survey with some reasons to pick, and some are pre-populated, and then there's other, and there's also a spot for them to type in something in other if they choose. And so when we provided these answers, work schedule conflicts, actually other is the number one, but after we looked at what their answers were to other, then other became number two. And the most common selected one is work schedule conflicts, which, staring at the SEP KPI dashboard every single day, I'm not surprised. 63% of our students are part-time students. We have a lot of students that work. So that's not surprising to me at all.
I wonder can we get that information broken down by full and part-time students? Is that possible?
Maybe.
Why a full-time student leave
Yeah.
versus why a part-time student ended up leaving?
I'm sure
I think that would
need to
be
a project.
Yeah,
I think it'd be interesting also to break it down by age.
Yes, right. Absolutely.
And
Teresa, they can break that down. Yeah, it'd be interesting at some point to look at that and maybe attack that specific to student populations. But if you look at that, personal issues, family issues, or health issues, or they're struggling academically, they're either not prepared, they're overloaded, their schedule is too overloaded, and they're behind. What does that say? I want to hear from some of the faculty. What does that say from a faculty perspective? Feel free to enter that in the chat or just talk. No thoughts? Maybe you've heard faculty members, maybe you've heard your students discuss this. Troy says, is there a disconnect between college expectation and the high schools on what's required? I think that certainly has been an issue in the past.
And I think not only what's required at the high schools, but also just as the state curriculum keeps changing, our high school, secondary, and elementary teachers, they don't even know what to teach. A lot of the things that we're expecting them to know, they're no longer even taught in school before they get here. But we still expect them to be ready to come into a science class or an English class the way that we think they should. A lot of it is deficits in our public schools.
So Shalay says we need help with some advising maybe early on in the semester. Amy says the challenge may be students who have a difficult time being self-motivated. Dana says self-advising, students overloading themselves. So advising is a big issue, right? A big part of that. If they're allowed to self-advise, maybe they're going to, their eyes are bigger than their stomach and not realize what is too much. And they need some assistance. They need some advising along the way.
I'm going to be a contrary voice here. And I think we're asking students why they withdrew. And they've been kind of told over and over again that if they fail, it's their fault. And that means that we don't have to take any responsibility. And if we don't take any responsibility, then we cannot affect this. So we might want to kind of rethink this and look at it from a barrier perspective. What are the barriers that we as an institution, and also just higher ed in general, what are the barriers that we put up that we aren't even aware of, that kind of feed into why students are not successful? They aren't used to higher ed, but what is it that we could do to help not just prepare them for when they get here, but help them succeed once they are here?
So the disconnect between high school and college, whether it's true or not, or there or not, we still have a responsibility to do something about it.
That's right. We have admitted them. Right? We've taken their tuition money.
Yep.
So what are we going to do to help them succeed?
Charmaine?
That was kind of my comment there on that early advising. You know, once I don't see that student before they get in my class, but once they're in the class, we're stuck together. So that early getting to know them, what are their needs? If motivation is a problem, what do we need to do to help motivate? And what are their needs to help them be successful? Because at this point, we really are stuck together. And if we want them to be successful, we need to work together to get them through.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that doesn't always work, but I think that is our initial responsibility, is to help.
Yeah, you know, Charmaine has an interesting response here. Gear Up and SIP, and those two things address the disconnect, you know, on either side. So the Gear Up is helping students prepare for college, and the SIP is helping them once they get here to develop and gain the skills that they need. But if you look down here, I like some of these answers. David Morris says engaging, encouraging, and academically nurturing students, helping them succeed. And then Eric responds and says that's why the engagement initiative is so important, right? So you can see how these all play together. So student engagement isn't just what kind of games and activities and entertainment we can provide them, but also engaging them academically and in the classroom. Talk about developing a relationship with students and giving them a good experience. It's a whole or holistic experience that we provide them. I'm going to start losing this because they go up. Dana says communicate with them in the way they want to communicate. Oh, that's a great response. Texting instead of sending email reminders that they may or may not ever even see or see too late. Knowing your students. Melanie says optimize course scheduling objective in the enhanced program offerings initiative. Absolutely. Aaron says, are we expecting students to be college ready, or should the college redesign to be student ready? Very good. Tom says reason a student leaves campus may be different than why they dropped class. The reason students leave campus who have never talked to counseling may be different from the students who do talk to counseling. That would be important to know. Nathan talks about guided pathways. Very good. Pam says don't discourage. One of my first teachers here announced the first day that 75% of class wouldn't make it to the end of the semester. It's a great way to encourage students, right?
President, may I butt in?
Please do, Kate.
Now that I already have. President,
we're forgiven.
If a large population of our students come in with remedial skills and lack of financial services, and we're looking for a diverse student population, but we have no diversity in our teaching faculty or in our on-campus people. We have no Black people for a Black person to see. We have no Native Americans for Native Americans to see. We might have to, if we're going to continue wanting to get these kids on campus, maybe we need to recruit somebody that they can actually, for lack of a better term, butter up to.
Yeah, you know, and actually that's in that second half of that answer here, right?
Yes.
And this is in the student conversations that the counselors have had with students that were leaving. And one of them was cultural barriers, right?
Yes,
lack of a like role model for diverse population.
We've been working with diversity for some time, but we're lacking in an area of diversity. I'm reading the comments, and when we heard that maybe we should be student ready instead of them college ready, that might be the way we have to go in the respect of the students that we're bringing onto our campus.
Right, absolutely.
All right, I'm going to unmute. I'm going to mute now.
Anyway, some good comments here. Going back to the answers here, relationships, lack of student engagement. Again, that goes back to one of our initiatives. Connections with students, faculty, staff, and community. Mental health issues. I didn't attend Craig Smith's Leadership yesterday on mental health, but I understand it was very well done. Anxiety, depression, suicide. Very good. Okay, let's keep going here. Got one, I believe it's just one more question with 3 answers. Question is, if I can find my mouse. Name the top 3 ways that the quality of the overall student experience affects our institution's short and long-term economic viability. Top 3 ways that that the experience that we provide students ultimately affects our very existence. That almost sounds like a leading question, but it's not our question. It comes from Allison Valencourt. David Morris says enrollment, enrollment, enrollment. Pam Woods says retention, completion, and send their own kids here. Retention. Same as Pam. I've got 3 answers here. And okay, Phil says recruitment, positive experiences lead to referrals, enrollment, competitiveness, and revenue. Connections with faculty, staff, connections with fellow students, support services, donations. Okay, I'm gonna start going through these. Okay, so Eric, you shouldn't have answered. I think you gave us these answers. So you're answering, you're giving us the question, you're giving us the answer. You're cheating here. Enrollment. Absolutely a primary way that the EAC is affected. We're currently in a 3-year downward trend on the Thatcher campus. Part of that, of course, is COVID and COVID-related issues. But during this time, only 30% of students are coming to us from outside Graham, Greenlee, and Gila counties. Now, in the past, not even very distant past, that was much higher. In order to reverse this trend, we need to increase our out-of-area enrollments. We need to be an institution that will attract students from outside our service areas. This is absolutely key for us because we don't have a potential student population, at least in our full-time student population, to support the college. We really do need it. We need enrollment from outside this area. So we need to be the type of institution that is attractive to students from other areas. So enrollment, competitiveness, EAC, we need to keep improving upon our competitive advantages. Now, we can't be all things to all people. So I think we need to be very specific and very targeted in ways that we try to be competitive. So, you know, I mean, if all we had are the basic academic programs and we didn't have anything unique, then maybe there wouldn't ever be a reason to come here. Or maybe the experience that a student gets here is so different than the experience that a student would get, well, let's say anywhere else, that's what's going to draw them here. All else being equal, the overall student experience must win students over. Keep them returning and telling all their friends and family. Relationships and experiences make EAC unique. These answers come from Eric. Eric, where are you getting these answers from? Is this from your own experience?
Well, this is, yeah, from my own experience of talking to students, talking to parents, and really, really being emphasized by all the data we've been studying leading the Strategic Enrollment Plan Initiative.
Right.
Is supporting all this stuff. I mean, because we all have stories that say this, but you know, now we're studying data that backs all this up.
Right, and then the final one, of course, is revenue. Obviously, lower enrollment will affect our revenue. As we talked about early on in this presentation, our tuition revenue is relatively small. It's only about 10% of our overall revenue. So the enrollment actually doesn't significantly affect our revenues, but over time, the long-term viability, it absolutely will affect us. If we have dwindling student populations on campus, we really do eventually cease to become a viable college. And that will dramatically affect all 3 of our service areas. Susan?
So as I think about this, instead of thinking about it as economic viability, just viability in general, given the information that you've just given, I think it'd be easy to just say, all right, Eric and Shalene, what are you guys going to do about this? You're the recruiters. But when I look at the numbers and try to dissect them in terms of programs, I'm going I'm going to put it back on, well, just to be blunt, I'm going to put it back on faculty in programs. If you've got a really awesome program and the numbers are dwindling, then what do you want to do to try to grow that program back up in spite of COVID? And so it's a little bit of an aggressive way of saying that, but I do think that that faculty who teach and have passion for their disciplines are in such a wonderful place to go out and find the students who also have a passion for that discipline or that career, if it's a CTE program. I listened to George Rocha talk about his program, the HVAC program, and I thought, oh my goodness, there wouldn't be a student who would listen to him who wouldn't say, oh, I've got to do that. That's the program for me. Because he is so infectious about saying how cool this particular career is. Listen to Aaron Burke talk about biology, and I think, oh, that's what I want to do. I met a woman today, Jessica Rogers, and she was talking about the courses that she teaches. And immediately, I think that would be so cool. That's what we've got to do as faculty. We've got to get not just to the high schools, but out into the community to say, this is an awesome program. Will you come and just get some information about it? And not leave recruiting entirely up to the Erics and the Shaleens of the world, who do a fabulous job, but they need our help.
They do a great job. You're absolutely right. And we're talking not just about institutional viability, but even program viability, as you mentioned. It's probably easy for our English faculty, not to pick on the English faculty, but probably easy for them to go, well, everyone's going to need English, right? So I think we're safe, we're secure in our positions. But the reality is it's both sides, right? We really need to work together if we're going to maintain viability. And you're right, Susan, that it's maybe even a little bit crass to talk about economic viability, but it is broader than just dollars. This is not a for-profit institution. No one's getting rich here. We exist for a reason, and that reason really is to be a benefit to our students and to our community. And as we understand that, then I think that we can start to understand what our role is in this. Any other thoughts?
Eric, what do you think about my saying that you're not entirely responsible for this? Do you think, oh, be quiet, I am, this is my job. Don't give away the farm.
No, I think that's awesome. I mean, and that's something I think that that needs to happen at any small community college where we do have limited people resources. Everybody is a recruiter. We all see students in we have different relationships and different opportunities to influence students. So all of us are recruiters. Our recruiting office may have specific tools to help us all. But we're not experts. I know just enough about HVAC to talk for about 3 minutes, and then I gotta get that kid to talk to George. Same thing with English or any of the other departments. And in fact, within the SCP initiative, we talk in terms of the student life cycle, and the life cycle has 4 phases: recruitment, enrolling, persisting, and retention, and then completion. And we have different life cycle leaders, and I am not the leader of the recruitment life cycle. Chase Moore is, and their project or their focus is to improve or to foster faculty recruitment above and beyond what our recruitment office can do to influence that and to make that efforts together, recruitment efforts as EAC, even more effective and more widespread. And that's what really, meeting, when students come to visit, when they get to meet someone on campus they have an interest in, they're not going to hang out with me. They're going to hang out with Spencer, with Mike, with with everybody else that's on campus. That's going to be their life. And so everyone else is just as a bigger recruiter, maybe more than Shalene and I. We initiate.
I think that's why I appreciate Kate's comments about diversity. If some of those faculty who go out and talk to students look like the students that they're trying to recruit, what a powerful tool in terms of getting those students to come here. Right now, since we don't have a hugely diverse faculty, what is it that we can do to try to meet that need while we are trying to increase the diversity? Those are questions that I think we can ask.
Other thoughts? We're about 9 minutes to the hour here. Would love to get your feedback on this information that was valuable at all to you in your role. We have people here, employees here on this in this meeting from such a wide variety of areas across campus. Faculty members, we have professional support staff, operations support staff, administrators. Anything else that we should have, any other information we should have presented or could have presented that would have been valuable to you? We'd love to know that. And you don't have to give it right now. We'd love to hear it right now if you have it, but love to hear by email later on if there's anything else that we can give to you that would be of benefit to you.
President Haney, Nathan Klein brings up a point that we haven't yet mentioned, and that's, he asks the question, how effective are clubs?
Okay, good.
And I think you speak so elegantly, I think, about what the student life experience is here. Or maybe Gary, if you're online, to just talk for a minute about how, if we can encourage students to get involved, that really supports their retention and completion.
Yes, Gary, you were here earlier.
I'm here.
Gary, tell us about student clubs. It's not just something fun, right? It's not just a diversion or a distraction. There are other reasons for it.
Absolutely. One of the most exciting things about an active club is an active, passionate, knowledgeable, caring sponsor. For example, you know what? We've got kids eating pizza a couple of times a week with the engineering and physics club. Karen's got some great things going there. JP has been a strong proponent of our Native American students with the Intertribal Club. The success of a club really hinges on a sponsor that's in that area that matches the interests of the students, and through that, those students are engaged with faculty, with staff, and with students that have similar interests. It could be so much bigger and so much better, and all of the success of that hinges, I think, a lot on one, the sponsors and the student leaders that are passionate enough to get involved and help involve their friends.
I don't want to overstate this, but if some of the information that we covered today about why students might leave campus after a semester or after a year, and that they are not engaging with other students or faculty or staff, then you can see why clubs can be so important, especially to a first year, a first semester student, for them to quickly get involved and get connected with a group of students and with EAC employees, to connect with us, to connect with the college and the campus and with others. If they don't make that connection, there's such a risk of those students leaving for non-academic reasons, for reasons that we could have prevented.
And I wonder if we even can prevent the academic reasons that they leave if they connect. right? Because then now
Right.
they've got a friend and they say, you know, I'm struggling in this class, and the friend says, oh, did you know that there's tutoring in the library? Or don't give up, go talk to your instructor during office hours. So any sort of connection gives a student a little bit more self-confidence to figure out how to solve the problem.
Absolutely. Great point. Gary, there are a couple of questions here. I don't know if you're reading them about clubs.
You know, there are some clubs that are inactive that could be rejuvenated. We've had some of our great faculty talk to us about starting up a club, and that's just a huge way to get students involved in your program, to get the word out, to get them involved in recruiting, and to give them a co-curricular exposure or a co-curricular experience with their subject matter. So if you're thinking about wanting to get involved for the club that's already in existence in your area, we can help you get set up and show you what you need to do to be a sponsor and to get things rolling. There's always things that we can do with those active clubs. Now, having said that, one of the key roles, I think, for a sponsor is to get some students that are willing to step up and be leaders and get active and help push the envelope for those clubs. The most active clubs are the ones that have student leaders that are in that club that really want to make it happen.
Thank you, Gary. Well, we are about 3 minutes away. I don't want to keep you any longer than you were anticipating, but I would like to thank everyone for participating today. Looks like we currently have 68. A couple minutes ago, there were 70 participants, so a really good group. I really appreciate you being willing to join us and to have this discussion. I don't want this to be the last time we discuss this. I think this is good information and something that we can continue as we move forward. But as we talked about, just a brief overview, because EAC is so heavily dependent upon on public sources of revenue, taxpayer dollars, specifically equalization, as we referred to. We must maintain a close relationship with our state legislators, with other state officials, and demonstrate, as I said earlier, the value of the college, not just to our local communities, but to the entire state. College finances are so closely tied to our ability to strengthen programs and to build facilities and maintain our physical plant and provide meaningful opportunities for our students. From a strategic perspective, we should always keep our students in mind as we make decisions that affect the budget and affect the long-term viability of the college. And because financial decisions at publicly financed institutions have so many ramifications, a lot of context is required to fully answer the many questions that we get and the proposals that we get about where and how to spend the limited dollars that we have. I know that there are likely many more questions than the ones that were brought up today, but I do hope that this leadership and this information provided at least an initial framework for an understanding of the considerations that are required in order to make the absolute best decisions for EAC as we move forward for the next 133 years. That's my goal. Anyway, thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your Tuesday afternoon. And remember, we have an Ideal Team Player workshop Friday morning at 8:30. We'll see you all then.
Todd, are you going to be here for the 133 years?
I hope not, but I hope the college is.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.